Hello, everybody. I just want you to know one thing. I'm a big Raider fan, and they're playing pretty soon. Anyways, so training video 4. PeaPaint1. Pia for Photopia. Paint because we're going to use the brush tools and do some digital art. And 1 means this is the first of a couple that we're going to be doing this year. Okay, so I hope you like to draw with a computer. And if you don't, just get your point, okay? And learn how to use Photopia. Because you'll want to draw on your friend's face when you put a picture of your friend in Photopia and I say, go ahead and doodle on them. Anyways, here we go. Let me show you. So we're going to go I'm going to go to my Google Apps, and I'm going to go to my Google Drive. Okay, so get to your Google Drive. Get to the closest Google Drive to you, okay? And Photopia always starts in Google Drive because we added it as a Google Drive app. And if you haven't done that yet, you'll need to do that. Go back to week 4 and watch a training video on how to add Photopia to your Google Apps, okay? And then come back here and join me. But if you've already done that, here we go. So we're going to go plus, more, Photopia. I'm going to go full speed. So if there's something you missed during this video, pause it and rewind it. Also, you should be doing these things as I'm doing them. Pause it, go do it, come back and play to see the next thing to do, okay? That is a good strategy for watching these videos. Don't just watch the video and then go back and try to remember everything. It's too much detail for that, okay? We could call this a close read, watching these videos to see how to do things, okay? So I'm going to click Photopia. And I'm going to go here, and the name of this is Pia for Photopia, Paint for Digital Art 1, because it's the first one we're doing in Photopia. I know we've done a little bit of digital art in Google Draw, but that's a different one, okay? This is Photopia. All right, and go ahead and keep the width and the height the same, and the background at white is good. Click Create. All right, so for starters, I want my eraser tool to not erase the background, so we shouldn't draw on this layer, this background layer. Let me full screen this. So I'm going to show you how to add layers. So right down here, down at the bottom right of the layers panel is the trash can, if that's if you want to delete a layer. But right here is to add a new layer. I'm going to click that. So there's our layer on top. Okay, so you can't see it, but it's there. And that will be the one we'll start drawing on. So I'm going to come over here to my toolbar, and I'm going to find the brush tool. B as in brush on the keyboard gets you to that tool, okay? Brush tool. And just so you know, the color that you will paint is down here. It's the color that you have set in Photopia. So I'm going to click that guy and use the color picker to pick the color I want, and then click OK. Set that as my paint color. All right, so I'm going to come out here and I can start painting. See that? I'm painting. So that's, and you can see over here on layer 1, you could see the little scribble I just did. All right, and if I want to change the color, let's go back here. Change the color. Click OK. And now I have another color. Okay, see that? So that's the brush tool. There's more to it. It's a whole control panel here. So I just want to go over the basics of the brush tool and how to erase. And I think you'll then have the things you need to create this first digital art painting using Photopia. And I'll tell you what the theme is at the end. All right, so if you do want to erase, just so you know, there's the eraser tool. E for eraser, and you can come out and erase just like you would expect to, okay? You just got to make sure you're on that layer. All right. If you didn't add another layer, that would be the layer you were on. If I'm on the background layer, look what happens. It erases the background. I don't want that. Let me Command Z that or Control Z that to undo that. So I'm going to go back up here to layer 1. And that way, the eraser tool works the way I want. Because it's just erasing what's on that layer. All right. So that's the eraser tool. Now, notice it's kind of small. There's a keyboard shortcut that can make your brush, whether it's an eraser brush or a paint brush or a selection brush. If it's a brush in Photopea, you could change its diameter using the keyboard. Okay. There's these bracket keys. If you look, and I covered this in class, but if you look down on your keyboard, look for the letter P as in Paul, and those two keys to the right of P. One looks, well, let me switch over to the brush tool. I'm going to paint the one. So this first one looks kind of like that, and it opens to the right. You see the bracket opens to the right. Well, every time I hit that, it'll make my brush smaller and smaller, okay, using that key. However, if the key right next to it, the one that opens to the left, that kind of looks like that, start hitting that, tap that. Every time you tap it, it gets bigger, right? So you can see that. I highly recommend using the bracket keys next to P to increase and decrease the brush diameter of the brush tool. It makes life much more easy. And it keeps two hands working. You have one hand on the mouse, and you have one hand on the keyboard. All right? And changing the diameter of a brush is just one of the things we can do with our non-mouse hand. Okay? So, I don't want this training video to go too long, so I want to just tell you a few more things. First of all, if we click this drop down on the control panel, right? We click this drop down arrow, it gives us some other brushes, and it does allow us to change the size by hand if we wanted to that way. But I think the keyboard is much faster. Hardness has to do with the edge and whether it's a soft edge or a hard edge. This is a hard edge. Let me make the brush a little larger so you could see it. So that's a hard edge. So right at the edge, there's no doubt that you're at the edge of that painted line. However, if I play around with the hardness, come off the hardness a little bit, well, then you start seeing a fuzz. See how it's a fuzzy edge? It's a soft edge. Okay, so that is what hardness has to do with. Some of the brushes already have hardness set. Now here's a brush with 0 hardness. Okay, so that's going to be the fuzziest that you can get. There's also a few more brushes here that look more like sponges. So like if you click this, I'm going to make this brush diameter a little bit bigger so you can oh, I got to get out of that. Okay, so you can see what it looks like. So you can see this guy here, see this brush, see what it looks like. So if I click, just click and don't drag. If I click and drag, look what happens. But if I just click, it just adds some texture. Just click and release the mouse on some of these others. Okay. All right. Show you a few more things. I'm going to go, I ran out of room here. So I'm just going to delete this layer. I'm going to go to layer 1. I'm going to hit the trash can. There, it's gone. See that? Now I'm going to come back here, down next to the trash can, add another layer so I can keep painting. Boom, see that? All right. So let me switch back to what this brush, let's say. And let's talk about opacity. Opacity has to do with the transparency of the brush stroke. So if I, let's get out of that. Okay, so if I make the brush a little bigger, 100% opacity, 100%, you can't see through that brush stroke. But if I set the opacity to like 50% or so, then you can see through that brush stroke. You can see the background come through. In case the background's white, so that's why it looks like lighter white. Okay. Let me change the color and show you what opacity would look like. if I go through a brush stroke. So you can kind of see that the brush stroke below it can show through. If I kick that opacity back up to 100%, then can't see under my brush stroke. Okay? And of course, opacity is 0, you're not doing anything, right? There's no color at all. So of course you would never do that. But anyway, but you would do it 100%. So that is opacity. Flow, it's kind of hard to tell flow. So here's flow at 100% with 100% opacity. Here's flow at 0. There's nothing showing. How about flow at 50? All right, so what flow is doing is it's spitting the color out off the brush. The color pixels are coming off the brush to the paper or to the document at a slower rate. So if you go fast, it'll do that. You can kind of see some texture a little, right? And if you go slow, then it might even be a little bit darker. So flow won't be very useful to you without using a tablet, drawing tablet, because then you can control the flow and you can kind of see that a little bit better. Don't worry about these other things. They're also kind of set. Really, these last 4 things are for digital artists that are using drawing tablets, because most digital artists are using drawing tablets, which we do have in room 31, by the way. Okay, so don't worry about blending modes yet. Let's keep it simple. Let's talk real quick. How long is this training video going for so far? Where are we at? Okay, I need to get this thing. We need to wrap this training video up. It's almost 15 minutes here. So if I go to, what was it? Oh, shapes. I can add shapes. Yes, I can to my drawing, but look what happens when I try to add a shape. Now my fill is going to be red, right? So now the shape color is controlled up there. Let's go with some lime green. Let me add an ellipse. So there's my ellipse. So look what it did. It jumped to its own layer. That's because this is the paintbrush layer and the background layer. Those are bitmap layers. Those are raster graphics. Whereas my shape tools are vector graphics. And you can't mix the two on one layer. So if I try to paint now on the shape 1 layer, I'm going to get this message. See what that says? Layer is not editable. In other words, you can't use the brush on this layer. So I can either go down to this layer. Now I'm back on it, but I'm behind. So I want to draw on top of that. I'm going to have to add another layer and throw that layer on top of my shape layer. Now I can see. I can paint on top. You see that? See how this is all working? So brush layers are raster or bitmap layers. You're painting with pixels. Whereas shapes, you're using mathematical formulas to create these perfect shapes that are scalable and never get pixelated when you try to enlarge them, while you're still in Photopea, of course. However, if you try to export these as JPEGs, then you're converting all these layers into one layer that is a bitmap. But that is the discussion we've been having on bitmaps and vector graphics, okay? So that is how to paint with the brush tool. The eraser tool also, E for eraser, gets me to the eraser tool, will allow me to erase. Of course, I can't erase on that layer, so I have to jump to a layer where I can erase. And I'm not finding that layer right now. It's over here, I think. Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, it was this one. You see that? Because I'm on this layer too. Anyway, hopefully this makes sense. And make sure when you're ready to save, file, save Google Drive. Save it to your Google Drive so that it's on your Google Drive ready for you for next time, because you're probably not done the first time you use this. Also, we'll save exporting and all that for the second training video, how to get this from when you're done drawing your landscape which I'll talk to you in class, will be on the assignment. You're going to do a landscape of some sort, one that's real or one that's imaginary, um, and how to get it on your graphics page. All right, that concludes this training video on how to use the brush tools, the eraser tools in Photopea. All right, have fun. Good luck. Bye-bye.